So let me tell you about my story. Last year, 2020, everyone talks about what a rough year it was. We shut down, COVID, blah, blah, blah. Great. Before all that March crap, I hit February. February hit me like a freight train. So I got sick back in December. Whatever this was lasted until January. Started to feel better. I went on a trip to Yosemite. Felt fine. Nothing wrong. Came back. Started feeling sick again. Okay. I got a cold. It was freezing at Yosemite. Who knows what happened? Well, I'm sitting with my girlfriend watching. Lord knows what we were watching. And started feeling some chest pain. After a little while, it started tightening up, and I could barely breathe. She looks at me and goes, "What the heck's going on?" And I said, "I have no idea. It hurts to kind of take in deep breaths right now, and all my breaths are shallow." So next thing we knew, we went to the ER. Great. They ran some tests, took some blood, this and that, checked everything, vitals. Everything looks good, you're fine. Nothing wrong with you. What does the doctor say? "You've got gas." Listen, yeah, I have gas. I have gas often sometimes. Depends on what I eat. I definitely did not have gas this day. I know what feeling backed up feels like. I know what all that feels like. This was not the same thing, lady. I argued. What happened? She sent me home. Okay, I'm done with you. I'm not going back. So, that was a Saturday, 2nd of February. Feel better Sunday. So, you know what? Whatever. I feel okay. Went to the gym, hit the weights. Little did I know that was the last time I'd be doing that. Played basketball that day. Next day hits, I feel awful. Like, so many weird symptoms. Felt sick, nose, cough. Okay, what is happening? Still having trouble breathing. Girlfriend goes, "We need to take you back to the ER or urgent care or something." I'm not going back. For what? For them to take my money and tell me I have gas? Absolutely not. We argued, we argued. Finally, I said, "Listen, if I don't feel better by Thursday, I'll go." All right. Wednesday hits, starts getting worse. In fact, when I start breathing, I start feeling this pain shooting straight up my neck whenever I'd inhale, from both sides, right side and left side, just shooting straight up. Sleeping, probably got maybe 3 hours of sleep. Thursday came, still not feeling that much better. Put on my game face at work, whatever. Finally, after work, my girlfriend goes, "You need to go to urgent care. You promised me you'd go." I said, "Fine." We go to urgent care, there's like a billion people in there. I'm like, great. Mind you, I hadn't eaten since 12 and it was about 6 at this point. They ran the same exact tests, same things happened. I'm still sitting there waiting. Doctor pulls me back in. Thankfully, it was a different doctor. He goes, "Listen, there might be something up with your lungs. You're having breathing issues. I want to make sure everything's okay. So go get a CT scan." Alright, cool. Go across the street, they do the CT scan. Nurse was supposed to get me after it was done. What happens instead? The radiologist comes up to me and he goes, "Do you have heart issues?" No. My dad has heart issues, but I've worked my butt off, exercising, this and eating well, everything. So, no, I've been preventative. He goes, "Your aorta's really large." Thank you? I, I don't know what you want me to say to that. He goes, "You're not going back to urgent care. We need to send you to the ER." Okay. So the nurse takes me to the ER, walks me over. What happens next? Well, there's a billion people there too. I go, "Great, I'm going to wait." The nurse goes, "No." They take me right in. Huh. I'm down with this service. Cool. Where was this whole time? All of a sudden, I hear my name on the intercom, which is weird. I have my doctorate. People call me doctor, but I don't perform surgeries. Triage nurse checks what it says on the paper that the nurse gave him. He looks up at me and he goes, "Do you know how lucky you are to be alive right now?" Straight face, kinda worried, kinda condescending actually. Made me feel like I should feel bad about myself or something. I'm like, "What the hell are you talking about, dude?" The second he says this, my girlfriend starts bawling like, "What is going on?" Everyone's confused, meaning she and I. These two other nurses show up with a wheelchair. They're like, "Okay, we have to wheel you to a bed." I'm still confused. No one's explained anything to me, by the way. This whole time, all I know is my aorta's big. Thank you. Okay. They didn't even let me get up. They said, "Don't move." They picked me up out of my chair and put me in the wheelchair. They wheeled me to a bed, and then they picked me up, laid me down, and then strapped me to the bed. I'm like, dude, am I being committed right now? What in the heck is going on right now? They sent me to a different floor or a different area. I don't know what happened. It's all a blur. Okay? All I know is they kept taking my vitals. Still, no one explained anything to me. They just said, "Don't move." They call an ambulance. They tell me that there's no one here that can really help me. I'm like, okay. What's wrong with me? They didn't really tell me much. Again, constantly taking my vitals. They tell me they're going to send me to another hospital. The only problem with the other hospital is they don't have any rooms available. Okay. Finally, an hour and a half later, maybe? It's like 10 o'clock at this point. They finally have a room available. I'm taken from like East Hollywood to East LA in like 10 minutes. Ambulance just zipped through. I blinked and I was already there. I was like, Jesus. I get over there, put me in a gown, all this stuff, lay me down. I'm still in pain, mind you. Every time I breathe, I had that bilateral pain in my neck. Still, no idea what's happening. This doctor comes in and she talks about my aorta and how it's extremely large and that they needed to run a few tests, like an EKG and an ultrasound and this and that, to see if there's a leak. Okay, they did that. They found a leak. This is where I finally figured out what the heck was happening. My aorta was large because I was having an aortic aneurysm. I was having a valve leak because of my aorta. The aortic aneurysm was partially caused by the fact that I had a bicuspid valve. So apparently all valves are tricuspid. Mine was bicuspid, which meant that my aorta was doing a lot more work, and there were some other complications that were caused because of it. They told me that they had to cut out part of my aorta. and that they had to replace my valve. Now, they gave me two choices. They gave me the choice of a tissue valve, and they gave me a choice of a mechanical valve. They told me a mechanical valve would last potentially the rest of my life. They told me a tissue valve would have to be changed out because the lifespan on a tissue valve is about 8 to 16 years. Well, I'm 35, and in 8 to 16 years, I'll be in my 40s, maybe 50s. Nah, I picked the mechanical valve. Now, what's the caveat with a mechanical valve? Sounds too good to be true. I'm on blood thinners the rest of my life. Well, whoop-de-doo, right? I'm on blood thinners. This means I get a paper cut. Guess what? It's not just a regular cut. I need to put a ton of pressure on it for at least 10 minutes to make sure that the cut clots. I have to be careful about everything. There should be a sign that says do not play with knives around me wherever I go, because I might cut myself and Lord knows what'll happen then. So what happens with sports like basketball and all that other stuff I was doing? Potentially, doctors say I shouldn't do it. What's gonna happen? I have no idea. Maybe by the time all this COVID stuff ends, I'll be 50. So I probably won't want to play basketball by then anyway. We'll see. But yeah, so now I'm on blood thinners. All that happened. The very next morning, they took me in at around 6, 6:30, 7, something like that. Surgery started at 8. I didn't get out until about 6. It's like a 10-hour surgery. Got some pictures. I had tubes everywhere. There were tubes in my stomach, like literally sticking out of my stomach. I felt like I was in the Matrix or something. There was another tube coming out of my neck. It was not pleasant. I looked down. My chest was completely just sliced open. There were stitches everywhere. It was like one of those things where you go into the morgue and you see all these bodies that have been embalmed or wherever this is. I don't know what they do at the morgue, to be real with you. But it looked bad. So I'm like, okay. And I look down and there's these tubes hanging out of me. Cool. Don't know what those are doing. But it was all there. And the weirdest thing was I had these weird wires coming out of me. Not tubes, but wires. They were connected to like this little machine. I had no idea what that was until the doctors came in, started messing with the knobs, and I felt super wheezy. I was like lightheaded, this and that. Did you feel that? Yeah, dude, I felt that. What the hell is going on? So apparently your top chamber's beating, your bottom chamber's not responding, so we have you on an external pacemaker. What? That's when they told me that if my heart didn't start responding in a few days, that they were going to have to cut me back open. Not as bad, but weren't going to have to cut me open and break open my sternum again. Instead, they were going to have to make a little slit right here, put in a pacemaker, like a little pocket, put it in the pocket, sew it up. Cool. Great. Well, it was tough. I was in a headspace where now I had information. When I went into my first surgery, which was probably the most life-threatening thing that I've ever dealt with and probably will be dealing with moving forward with everything else that I have going on, I didn't have time to process that. I went in, the only thing I thought about was my family. What's going to happen to my parents? What's going to happen to my girlfriend? Who's going to be there for them and take care of them if I'm not around? Those were heavy thoughts, but it happened so quick I didn't really get time to think about it. Now I'm hearing about this pacemaker. I've got all this info, like, I couldn't help but think to myself, for 35 years, I worked my butt off because I knew that my family had heart issues, heart attacks, and cholesterol, and this and that. I had none of that. Every time I got my blood checked, you are healthy. There is nothing going on with you. And then, like a freight train, I found out I could have died at any point doing pretty much anything. They wanted me to not move when I was at the hospital because the next move could have killed me. I didn't know that. I processed all this right after surgery. All this information came at me, and then this pacemaker got thrown at me too. And it was like, everything's falling apart. I did everything I could to keep myself from being in a position like this, and it was inevitable. It happened anyway. So the pacemaker really got me, and I broke down. I cried. And one of the nurses basically told me, you've been through the worst. This is just going to be a little aid. You don't know. Maybe weeks from now your heart will start responding, but you know what? It's there for backup. And I said, you know what? You're right. Kind of cleared my mind of all this. It was intense though. It's funny how the bigger thing didn't bother me as much going in because, again, I didn't have time to process it. The smallest thing, like a pacemaker, bothered me more. And looking back at it, it was kind of ridiculous, but I get where that came from and how it came about. And the last thing that happened, I don't know if you can see it. Notice my right eye is bigger than my left eye. This is my right eye, in case you're not sure what's happening with the mirror image. So, I guess I had shrunken sinuses and possibly the trauma of my surgery. Because my sinuses shrank, so your sinuses are your maxillary sinuses are supposed to be like this big or something, and mine shrank. And because of the trauma, my eye sank. It's a progressive issue. This is still something else I need to deal with. So now I'm in a situation where I've got that going on. I found this out right after surgery. Believe it or not, my face was symmetrical at some point. Now, not so much. But that's okay. So, gonna deal with that. Very curious how that's gonna go because I'm on blood thinners, and the fact that they're gonna have to carve some way for my sinuses to kind of extend. There's gonna be a lot of blood and stuff going on for a few weeks, so we'll see what happens with that. Gotta consult my doctor for that. If you're in a position like this, please always consult your doctor about stuff, okay? For me, all this is new. And you know what? I'm glad I'm asking questions, because if I was in a position where I thought I knew everything and I messed up, it could be costly. Okay? I've been through a decent amount. And then the last thing, let's fast forward from February. Oh, so surgery happened on the 7th for my aorta. On the 14th for Valentine's Day, I got a pacemaker put in, so that did end up happening. And then I was discharged on the 18th. Cool. Life was interesting for a couple months. I had lost 30 pounds I was about 210. I went down to 180 while I was in the hospital after surgery. I went from having a little bit of muscle mass to having absolutely none. Like, absolutely none. Um, it was it was eye-opening because I realized all that stuff didn't matter. My new goal was to be healthy so that I could get back to where I was. Well, the doctors tell me you're not allowed to lift anymore. I was lifting 5 to 6 days a week. So when that happened, it kind of hit me hard. Ironically, COVID happened the month after, and everything shut down anyway. So going to the gym was never going to be an option. I don't know if it ever will be for me because I'm technically high risk now. Move up to June. I get a CT scan done, an echocardiogram, ultrasound, all that. My doctor goes, I have some good news and bad news. Well, that's always fun. Which one do you want to hear first? Dude, I don't care. Just tell me whatever is going on. He goes, well, the good news is everything looks great with your aorta. Okay. So what's the bad news? You have another valve that's leaking. Your mitral valve's leaking. And it looks like it's moderate to severe. What? When I left there, I was beside myself. I got into the car and I started crying right next to my girlfriend. What the hell else could go wrong at this point? Seriously? It's like my body, my heart is just falling apart. And I think the closest analogy was thinking about, you know those cartoons where the dude's on the rowboat, all of a sudden you go, psh, there's like this leak in the boat. Dude starts getting some wood and nailing it down, or some bubble gum or a cork or something, and puts it in the hole, and then psh, out of nowhere another hole bursts through. Well, that's my heart at this point. I plug one hole, this new one just pops up, starts gushing. Like, seriously? Come on, man. I'm drowning here. So, after months and months of saying, let's leave it alone, let's figure it out, I finally changed insurance. I've been going to other doctors, and they think, and the hope is, I do not yet, at the very least, need to replace that valve as well. The thought now is that it could maybe be clipped, and if it's successful, the clip could potentially last the rest of my life. That is the hope. That is the dream at this point, so we'll see. So I guess this part of the story is to be continued. Waiting on my next 2 surgeries, one for the sinuses and one for my mitral valve. What do I do in the meantime? Try to stay healthy. Try to stay safe. There's so much going on in this world right now with COVID and Lord knows what else. Someone like me at risk, safest place is at home. Does that mean I don't go out at all? Absolutely not. But you gotta be cautious. In terms of food and all that, for some reason, my doctors from my old insurance told me to stop taking cholesterol medicine, and I guess my body's been, well, besides the fact that I haven't been exercising as much at all, compared to what I used to, because I can't lift and do all that other stuff. Try to do a little bit of cardio here and there. I've been walking 3 miles a day, but my cholesterol's almost doubled. So I guess my body's synthesizing or whatever it does, and more LDLs are being produced than HDLs, and my cholesterol's been bad. Just found that out this month. Why that hadn't been checked before, no idea. But it's all set. I'm just eating better now. I've got some good recipes for some low salt, some delicious and good for heart healthy, good for cholesterol, everything. Okay? So if you need any of that, hit me up. I got you. But in the meantime, until I've got a volume 2 to this story, or a chapter 2, I'll see you later. Thank you for listening to my story. If you have any questions, I'd love to answer them. Let me know. Alright? Thanks.